Welcome to the No Budget Indie Filmcast, where we dip into the independent film universe to highlight those little films that you might not have heard about elsewhere. Will you agree with our panel, or will our panel agree with each other? Tune in to find out. I am Milo Dennison, and with me, as always, is Claire Milan.
Hello.
And Cathal Feeney.
Hello.
All right, today we are watching a film I think is called Tipatshimushtunan.
I was looking forward to that, Milo, I have to
I think
say.
that's about accurate in the description. So Tipatshimushtunan means tell us in Inu Amin. I don't know why I picked this film. I should have actually realized what I was going to have to say before I picked it. But basically, I was looking. It's going into October. The second Monday of October in the U.S. has always been Columbus Day, and depending on where you celebrate it, some states, some cities don't, and a lot of areas actually are now being more aware of what happened after Columbus arrived in the U.S. and it's now being celebrated as Indigenous Peoples Day. And so I wanted to pick a film that was somehow related to Indigenous people of, in this case, Canada. And it was kind of hard because, to be honest, all the films I found were quite depressing about this is the hard life on the reservation. This is the hard life I lived, and so forth and so on. And unfortunately, that's kind of what this one is as well. So it's made by Jean Vital Jolette. Jean Vital Jolette. I might have that right. And it opens with a woman who's just center in the screen talking to somebody off camera about her life as a child, where she was basically taken from her home or the reservation that she probably lived on and into a town, and where they built a school that was a religious school, and she was kind of forced into the school. And this happened, I think it was in the 50s when it happened to her. But it's a pretty common experience in Canada and the US, where the government comes in, takes the locals and says, okay, you're going to now learn English. You're going to learn to, worship Christianity. You're going to dress like this and stuff. And so we, of course, all know from the 17 and 1800s and that kind of stuff, but it does still happen into the 1900s. And it's her story of what happened to her in the school and the traumatic experiences that she happened and how she dealt with it. And then it kind of cuts about halfway through to a music video of just kind of people around the village and stuff doing their thing. And then it kind of cuts back to her of interacting with some of the people. So it's kind of a documentary / music video, I think. That I get the impression that the director wanted to make the music video, but felt like he wanted to expand it so that there's more to it than just that, which in this case is what it is. It's shot really lovely and simply. Most of it's just the woman talking, and it'll cut to screens like a shot. Like if you're watching, you can see behind me, there's a image of a cross with a dress on it. And then it cuts back to her talking. It might cut to some text on the screen to give some additional information about the school and stuff like that. But it's just real simply shot and kind of with the intent of being an impactful story. It's also done in black and white as well. So it is a good story worth telling, and it's worth hearing about that it still happened into the 1950s, because we often don't think that it did, this type of stuff towards Native people. It does feel a bit long to me. I don't know if it felt that way to you as well. Like, it's only a 10-minute film and you're kind of watching, you're like, wow, is this over yet? This feels really kind of long. But it could just be the subject matter and the way that the film is told. And it's still, I think, worth seeing, in my opinion. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's really, really well shot. I love the black and the way it's shot like that. And I didn't know about Indigenous people, especially in Canada, being forced into these schools, into these Catholic schools. And we have unfortunately, we have a parallel to that in Ireland. And they mentioned at the end there was loads of babies buried in a field. And we had a big scandal here, the Tuam baby scandal, where they found babies buried in a field as well. So the Catholic Church does have a lot to answer for. And I didn't know that the Catholic Church was doing this in Canada. I know that natives were treated very badly, particularly in Australia, indigenous people. But yeah, I never knew that that happened. That was a big eye opener. And yeah, I just thought it did drag a little bit, and it did feel 3 times as long. I think it was something to do with the pacing and the very heavy matter being discussed. She talks about being sexually assaulted by a priest, and I think she told her grandmother, and her grandmother did he run towards the priest or something? Or I'm not sure. But yeah, yeah. I think maybe the filmmaker wanted to make a music video, and then it turned into something else. It looks like that kind of film, but I suppose it was an eye opener for me. Really well shot, and yeah, I thought it was very well made as well, and it's a very heavy topic to go into, but it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't like really. Like you can't say it's. I can't say I enjoyed the film because of the topic, but I thought it was very well shot and fast, interesting eye opener into what went on back then.
Yeah. It I was a bit confused by it as to whether it was a documentary or a music video, because halfway through it sort of introduces itself, and you think, well, it's nearly over now. But from what I understand, that there's this guy, this singer, he wanted to make something. He wanted to make, you know, a music video about this issue, you know. So he obviously wanted to give it somebody a chance to talk about it in some detail. So I didn't think it was too long, because, you know, you had that woman at the beginning talking, and you know, that was interesting, and you were kind of, you know, kind of riveted by what you had to say, and then it changed tack and became sort of a music video. So you could sort of say it was a film in 2 parts. Um, yeah, and then like when she was talking at the beginning, even though it was very traumatic, and she was talking about her experiences, that that trauma didn't really come through in her voice or her face, and it sort of, it seemed to indicate, which we kind of learned, that that they come to deal with it, they come to terms with it, that they acknowledge it, it's part of their past, but it doesn't define them, and that they've used the community to help, with the help of the community, you know, they've learned to get on with their lives and not become sort of prisoners of their past. So ultimately, it's a sort of a positive message, you know, that it's, you know, that with the help of the community, that they can continue to enjoy their lives.
Yeah, I like the fact that they talk about what happened when they tore the school down, and they've kind of turned it into like this music place where people go into music and arts and that kind of stuff, which is kind of nice as well.
I wonder why those babies were killed. Like, why were they buried? I'd love to, if there's an explanation about that. Like, you wonder, there's a bigger story to be told, I think, here. Or maybe there is a longer version of this. But I think you'd love to know more details in some parts of it. I suppose hard to do that in a short, you know?
Yeah, I agree, especially when she talked about her grandmother running out of the house to the priest. So did the grandmother confront the priest?
Yeah,
Or
kind of.
did anything happen because of that? Because basically she said, yeah, my grandmother knew what happened, ran out, and then back, but she didn't really say what happened because of that. My guess is probably nothing, because, you know, that's just the way things were. They, you know, brush it under the carpet type of stuff. But it would be interesting to know, like, if anything happened, if the grandmother said anything, or what that went down like.
I presume it's very well known in Canada, this story.
Yeah, maybe there's missing
And
information we're not getting. Do you know, we don't understand, you know, like it's like living in Ireland, and we know the scandals that happened here. And if people made a documentary like this, we could fill in the missing gaps. So maybe this is well known in Canada. I don't know.
I don't think it is. I was basically kind of reading the bio of it, and it was part of what he was saying was to make people more aware of this, that this type of stuff happens. So maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
how many did they say? 200 children
Or 250 or
died?
something.
Yeah,
that was
that's probably known.
1970.
Okay. You were talking
Mhm.
about that. I thought you were kind of talking about her story specifically, or
Well, I mean,
this
that's
particular place.
part of the story. I would have thought a key part of it. And he obviously, it's not a documentary, so you don't want to go into too much detail. Like that
Yeah.
bit about the children die. I mean, that was quite, that was quite a sort of a staggering sort of thing to introduce at that point of the film. You're going to,
Yeah, the
wow,
film was like almost over at that point.
Yeah,
yeah.
and it was such a like it was so like that's just so horrific, and you could when you see little children's little shoes, and that's a whole thing in itself. Like what happened to those children? Why were they buried in that field? Like, is it like what happened here in Ireland? It's yeah, I'd love to know more about that.
Mhm.
And this film, would inspire you to go and find out. I mean,
Yeah,
information is readily available these days.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
so
That's
it
a
is a
huge.
taster of what happened, and if you want to find out more, you can.
Mhm.
But it is very resonant of what happened in Ireland,
Mm.
definitely with the mother and baby homes.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah. I guess like the problem with that though is like that's not necessarily her story. That's throwing this additional story into that. If this film's going to be about her story, I think that, focus on her story and have that separate story, be a separate documentary. I mean, that's another subject.
But her story is probably everybody's story. She's just one person who went through this experience, but she
Mhm.
wasn't the only one. She's just representative of those children,
Of
really.
what happened to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Mm,
But it
maybe.
was, I mean, it was a really, very well made, very well shot, like the black and
Absolutely.
white
The
and the
black and
imagery,
white.
and uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the black and white just it shows up the detail in this, and even the way the woman looks, like it really showed her lovely face,
Oh yeah,
and
like
just
her character.
her character. And she's such a spiritual side to her with the feather. She kept on with this feather, and then she kind of did a blessing on them. It was like their own like that all this religion and the French language is forced on them. So it's like the feather represents their original indigenous probably spirituality. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting too, like how the first, I think, 6 minutes were basically just her talking to the camera, and it was still engaging enough, like to where you want to keep watching and hear the whole story, which is impressive considering how audiences now are used to like constant cuts and action and stuff like that, to where a person's story just talking straight to the camera is engaging enough to keep us interested throughout the rest of the film, which is a nice quality filmmaking on the part of the maker and her, that she's able to keep us engaged.
and I
Yeah.
liked the soundtrack they had over
Mm.
her voice. This kind of metallic-y sort of sound. I thought it was well done because it wasn't too sinister, do, 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 but it just caught the right mood at that.
Like
Yeah,
it's
I
amazing.
keyed into it on 1.2 when she was going into the story with the priest, and the music kind of changed with it, but it was real subtle. It was
Yeah.
interesting.
Like it's amazing there's a place of so much horror that can be just torn down, and then you have this lovely like music festival and dance and all this creative stuff happening in that same space. It's like it's like a healing process for everyone. It's a fascinating thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
They're reclaiming it for themselves.
exactly.
Mhm.
yeah. All right. Well, should we rate it?
Okay, so for me, I thought it was really a massive eye opener into what went on in Canada, and unfortunately there's a lot of parallels with what happens in Ireland as well. It was very well shot. It dragged a little bit, but I thought it was really, really good films. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars.
Okay. I thought it was very good, beautifully shot. Um, and I didn't mind the sort of the change of tone or pace, going to the music. And yeah, I'll give it 4 stars.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the pacing. I shouldn't say that because it does work for what it is, but I did find it distracting how it turns into a music video and then turns back into a story again, kind of thing. And they introduce things, but they don't really tell you what happens, like the grandmother stuff or the other story. But overall, it's certainly worth watching, especially because this, as you mentioned, this stuff happened in Ireland, it happened in Canada, it happened in the US, it's happening, now in certain countries around the world. So it's still certainly something for people to be aware of. And this does a good job of telling that story. So, oh, should I go 3.5 or 4? Which one of you do I want to agree with? Because I'm gonna have to agree with one of you on this. I'm gonna go call, I guess. I'm gonna go 4 stars. Yay. All right. No budget audience. The film's called Minto Tipatshimushtunan. I'll put a link in the show notes because I cannot pronounce the name of it. So you can watch it and let us know what you think. You can always reach us on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at No Budget Show. And with that, we'll say see you next time and goodbye.